All right, welcome everybody. My name is Norbert Liki, and I'm the CTO of Aliz. Yeah, I've been working for Aliz for more than like 7 years now, coming from the data science part. And essentially, when we started working on the data science part, we created like recommendation engines. Then we created like machine learning platforms as technology matured. And later then, when generative AI became more and available, we started creating generative AI products. And right now, we are really into developing agentic engineering practices to solve really tedious tasks that we had in the past, like data warehouse migrations. And throughout all of these experiences, I've been always in contact with customers. And today, I brought to you like a story that I have that really changed like how I approach problems, especially in the AI domain. So last autumn, I met a German client who was in the fashion industry. They were coming from a really traditional background, so they were selling clothes via television advertisements like Teleshop, but they also had like a web shop as well where they were selling these clothes. And this client was interested in virtual try-on solutions, so they have the clothes, they wanted to put it on models, and essentially they wanted to like save costs by doing so because the whole process of shooting these images were like very expensive and long, and they wanted to optimize this. And then the first surprise came that this client didn't show up like unprepared for our first meeting, but actually he sent me a video recording of an application that he developed showcasing what he needs from us. And essentially it was really like a game changer, and I haven't thought and haven't seen this after that either, that this guy was coming from essentially like a business background. So he was directing photographers, but not from the technical side, but still using the right technologies. He was able to express his ideas, showcase us in a way that was like much more expressive than writing a documentation. So throughout the engagement, in the phase where we are discussing about the needs, essentially he created multiple prototypes for different versions of the problem. He created like a 60-page long document describing me like how the system should work, why he needs a graph database in it, how he wants to represent different styling aspects as matrices, how he wants to combine with them. And of course, he wrote it with AI, but the idea is that like this guy, coming from no technical background at all, was able to create this concise idea. And when we were discussing the needs, we were really like sparring on ideas. So he created an app, then I created something that he didn't know how to solve. And we were just like discussing this to like really find out how to solve his problem. And this was really like eye-opening for me that that if we doing this every engagement, we would have been much like successful, and we could have like de-risk our projects much better. And essentially, unfortunately, we didn't won this engagement, but it really made me rethink like how we are approaching especially agentic problems. So essentially, we started to like rethink how we are going to work with our clients, and we created a framework that shifts our mindset from creating like written proposals into creating prototypes that we can iterate on together with our clients. In this way, we start collecting the requirements together with them, discussing, but instead of like writing and iterating on documents, we validate the ideas with prototypes, and to find either the bottlenecks there or to easily express the needs from the other side. And once we have this logged up, then we can ideate on the business case, the financial part, and start the project with a much more confidence than previously. And we call this as our Aliz design framework, and we want to apply it for many cases. By doing so, we also like realize that this is not just the specialty of doing generative AI applications, but this methodology can actually be applied to other domains as well, and we started doing so for other domains like data analytics workloads and also for infrastructure problems as well. So the methodology itself is there because AI helps you to really like scaffold, test ideas really fast, and nothing really holds you back to apply these technologies in any problems. Here, what we experienced is that maybe it's not really on the technology part, but on the people mindset, because many engineers want to do the right solutions every time, but these prototypes doesn't require the best technical details or the most correct like, data that would fit in. These are really for either telling a story or to really dedicate the projects to find out where the bottlenecks are. And when we are doing these projects and doing AI agentic projects, often we get the question like, how much will this cost for us? Like, how much is an agentic solution will cost for us? And on paper, when you start from looking at from the high level, maybe from a financial director perspective, you see like how much does the Gemini API cost. You have an input token price, output token price, and essentially multiply that and you get this. But we are actually starting to build AI agentic applications, then you get the other complexity, like first of all, you cannot necessarily determine the length of your prompts. You need to have very complex instructions in hand. You need to define the tools that you are not really aware of when you're scoping the projects. These tool calls can fail. So, essentially, like estimating the cost of an agentic application is really, really like hard. And this is also where building a prototype would help you, because there you can easily like find and understand where the most drivers of the costs are in your solution. The second what we face is here should be like a shield, and here should be a magnifying glass. So what the second part what we face building applications is that it's not really obvious, and it was also surprising for us. So especially if you are building like consumer applications, you want to make sure that you sanitize these applications. These applications shouldn't transfer the sensitive customer data to the models. You don't send back any explicit content. And essentially, once you're building these layers in the application, the PII reduction, the content validation, the topic filtering, what we saw is that these costs are actually adding up in our production applications. So looking at an example that we did for a client, these security aspects of the application was like 30% of all of the costs, like 40% were the LLM costs, and the rest of the infrastructure was really like a tiny bit. And when we are doing also like these developments, another aspect is the grounding part, which is surprisingly expensive. So if you are grounding your application on your own knowledge base, then it's cheap. But if you want to bring in like external sources to validate, either Google search or Google Maps, then these costs can also pile up. And here also, if you know before when this is going to appear in your application, you can plan with it. And the last key takeaway that I had in this talk is that we can build, of course, agentic applications that spawn thousands of sub-agents. They have like multiple steps. But when it comes to really building reliable systems in engineering, the simpler is always the better. So if you consider like an agentic system which only has like just like 3 agents in it, and each agent has like the reliability of like 80%, then essentially in this 3 agentic system, the reliability of the whole workflow is like 51%, which is essentially like a coin flip. So either the system works for you or not. And even if you like bring up the capabilities of the agents to be like 95%, then your system starts to work on 86% of accuracy, which is really good, but it takes really much time to bring that system up to like 95% of accuracy. And that's why I think that we are seeing that agentic systems always build up on some like workflows. They don't always rely everything on agents to rule the conversations, but they incorporate complex logics coming from agentic decisions and also like deterministic rules that we can program. And this is what also for me shows that in the recent Google Agent Development Toolkit, they introduced the graph-based workflows essentially. Instead of having an agent to decide every time what to do next, you can define a graph of execution to make sure that the outputs are what you need. And just to then reiterate a bit, the 4 key takeaways were that it is always better to show than tell and write. Then LLM costs are really hard to estimate because these systems are complex. Security costs can also pile up, and when designing a system, the simpler is the better. So if you are on the service provider side like me, then I would advise you to stop writing specifications, documents, but start to developing prototypes. And if you are on the other side, on procurement or finance, then start asking prototypes in your request towards vendors, because then they will be able to show you if they have understood your needs at all. Thank you very much.